Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Friday, October 6, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. There's a reward for information leading to the shooters at Morgan State University. We'll tell you exactly about that when we can. Louisiana, they're battling white Republicans when it comes to the creation of a second black congressional district. Same thing happened in Alabama. There was a hearing today. We'll tell you exactly what took place. Also, tomorrow is the last day of early voting in Louisiana. Black numbers are not where they should be. And the African-American who is running for governor, Dr. Shawn Wilson, will join us on today's show to talk about his campaign. Also, grassroots voting organizations starting to hit the road all across the country. We'll talk with Melody Campbell, the National Coalition on the Black Civic Participation. They are in Florida. Also, while the overall unemployment rate remains steady, the unemployment rate for black men increased. For black women, it dropped. We'll give you the latest on today's job numbers. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all.
Folks, the battle over voting continues. Today in Louisiana, Republican lawyers went before the federal bench, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, asking or arguing if the state must follow Alabama's court-ordered path in drawing a primarily new black congressional district. The questioning also was about how quickly they could get this done before the 2024 election. Louisiana is one of many states still battling over congressional districts after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Alabama violated the Voting Rights Act when its Republican legislature failed to create a second black majority congressional district when it redrew the state's congressional map after the 2020 census. Joining me now is Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Cliff, glad to have you on the show. All right, Cliff, here's what is bogus, what is absolutely bogus from these Republicans. Last year, they drew the congressional lines, all right? What then happened was they were drawn enough in time. The federal courts ruled that they violated the Voting Rights Act. There was enough time actually to change it before the 2022 midterm elections. That didn't happen. So what then happened was the Supreme Court said, hold up, leave the lines in places in line. Republicans got control of the House. Now they're trying to say we don't have enough time. It's 2 years later. This is BS.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Roland. What they did in the last time was that they had all these cases. You know, you had the Alabama case, you had the Louisiana case, you got cases from Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and they held off on ruling on any of them, including Milligan, which they eventually ruled on this year, saying, oh, yeah, now that we looked at it, you know what, it was racist and black folks deserve another district. And that decision really impacts all of these other cases where the facts are very much the same. The situation in Louisiana is almost identical to Alabama. In Alabama, you had black folks only having 1 out of 7 districts, even though we are 30% of the population. And in Louisiana, we're even bigger part of the population as 1 out of 6 districts. And so it's really the same thing. Essentially, as you just said, what the Supreme Court did by pushing it off and waiting was saying, you know what, even though we know that these districts are racist and that they violate the Voting Rights Act, we're not going to do anything. So we're going to let a whole midterm election go by. And literally, the control of Congress was really decided just on the back of voter suppression and racially gerrymandered districts. So here comes Louisiana now. And this is why we told people, Roland, you may remember, and I think you were understanding at the time, too, when the Supreme Court decided to send the case back to Louisiana. Many people thought that was a victory. They thought that it automatically meant that Louisiana would have to follow what Alabama, what the Alabama case went, right? And that would seem to be the common sense interpretation. But in reality, what they did was they sent it back for this question of, oh, do we now have to go through the full process of arguing this case at the appeals court? And so even though you would think that automatically it meant that the Louisiana case would have to go by the lower court and give the extra black district, we knew that there was the possibility for some shenanigans. This circuit, this Fifth Circuit in Louisiana, they're wrong for even entertaining this. They didn't even have to entertain this. They didn't even have to have a hearing about this week. They just could have squashed it and be like, nah, you know, the lower court has spoken, Supreme Court has spoken, you need to do an extra black district. But as soon as they even granted this hearing for them to even argue this, we knew that there was some shenanigans. And this is what our concern was going back to when they first decided that case a couple of months ago.
And again, for people who don't understand, the courts ruled in enough time. I mean, if I remember, they ruled in early 2022. Before the primaries. Right. Louisiana's primaries are in the late year. They're in August, and then the general election is actually in November. There was more than enough time, but they were like, no, let's hold it. So I'm not buying this. Oh, I don't know if we're gonna have enough time to redraw these lines. Well, the legislature had more than enough time to fix the crap from last time. No, what they're trying to do is run out the clock, hoping that the court that they will get another attempt to freeze it in line to guarantee another black district is not created for another 2 years.
Right, and that hope is really based on concrete experience because that is what often happens. We are often put in a situation where we have districts that we know are racist, that everybody and mama knows is racist, but they go through one cycle using it. Then they go through another cycle using it. And we're in this perpetual situation of, well, where's the justice, right? Justice delayed is, in fact, sometimes justice denied. And so that's what they're trying to do. In fact, they look like they got called out a little bit by this appeals court because they were basically, like you're saying, they were saying, oh, we want to have the full case relitigated. We want to have a full hearing, right? It's that important. But then when they're asked, well, how soon could this take and how much time? Then they start going, oh, well, I think, we could have the case actually be argued like sometime next year. And the judges tell them, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't act like this is urgent and then be like, oh, but we're cool waiting. We're cool waiting another 6 or 7 months before we actually get a hearing. So, yes, you are absolutely right. This is all a part of the games that they're playing. They're playing a game in Alabama. They're playing games in Louisiana. They're playing games in Florida. They're playing games in South Carolina. But the reason that they're playing these games, we got to be clear, is because these games have succeeded in the past, and we found ourselves arguing a righteous case, a legal case, a case that would ultimately be proven to be on our side. But in the meantime, we've lost power. We've gone through 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 cycles with bogus, racist districts, and that's what Louisiana is betting on right now. They're playing games.
But what gets me for the Fifth Circuit, why is there a need for a full trial? This already went through a full trial.
Right. Exactly. It's already gone through a full trial at the district level, the first court level, and they were told it's racist, do another district. The same way that Alabama was told it's racist, do another black district. The Supreme Court has spoken on it in the Alabama Milligan case. It's racist, give them another district. And so there's no need to have a full hearing on this. The only reason you'd even be trying to get a full hearing if all you're trying to do is run out the clock, or just waiting and hoping that maybe you could just stretch it out and get it back to the Supreme Court, and that maybe they'll flip again, right? That maybe they'll actually do this time what everybody thought they were going to do with the Milligan case in Alabama. And so either way, they're playing games, and we do not need to have another full trial on something that's already been litigated. And that is quite clear. I mean, even common sense tells you how you got 33% of the population and we got 1 out of 6 seats. That means 33% of the population has 16% of the seats. Like, this is clear cut. This is, no pun intended, but it's black and white. And so, again, they are playing games, but they're playing these games because these games have worked in the past. And we are just here to tell them that the games aren't working this time, that we're on to your games, we're on to your tricks, and that we're going to stay on this. And we are going to get the power and the representation and the district that we deserve in Louisiana and all these other states.
But while we're talking about that, tomorrow's the last day of early voting. And earlier this week, Gary Chambers put a video out. And Cliff, the numbers are abysmal of black folks showing up to vote early in Louisiana. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And, and there are reasons for that. Some of it deals with the voter suppression that we see in the state. Some of it just deals with the lack of resources out there that's out there in order to mobilize our voters. We know that our dear friends at the Power Coalition, which is one of the plaintiffs in this legal case, right? Which, again, is part of the reason why they do this. They do these tricks because they know that anytime it takes our time to have to litigate this, to have to sue them, right, to have to explain stuff to our voters, that's less time we have to actually mobilize and get our folks to turn out. So there are lots of reasons for it, including the lack of resources that's in the state. I've been singing this tune all year long. Look, Roland, we got 3 gubernatorial races in the South this year. Like right now, Louisiana, Mississippi, right, where there's a real chance for black folks to come out in large numbers and shock the country. I've been telling people this for 6 months. And in Kentucky, which, like Louisiana, already has a Democratic governor, and you got critical issues at play in Kentucky, including Cameron, the attorney general who refused to prosecute cops that killed Breonna Taylor, he is running for governor in Kentucky. So we got 3 critical Southern gubernatorial races, and it has been hard to get people to pay attention to them and support them and invest in the groups that are trying to mobilize voters to come out, particularly black voters. And so we need more people like you. You know, you do it, but the rest of this country has not been paying attention to these critical races that are going on, where we have an opportunity to expand our power and to get action on the issues that we care about, right? Healthcare, right? In Mississippi, Medicaid expansion and rural hospitals. Mississippi has one of the highest sales taxes on food in the state of Mississippi, 7%, Roland. These are the issues that we have a chance to make some serious advances on if we get support for mobilizing black voters in these states. And it just hasn't been happening.
All right, Cliff Albright, Black Voters Matter. Always appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
All right.
And I did get my dashiki. I got the dashiki.
You got it, all right.
Yeah, I wore it on the air Monday. So I got the Black Voters Matter dashiki.
All right,
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Get it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. We'll bring in our panel. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Same thing when you're watching on Black Star Network app. Support us in what we do. Your contributions play a critical role in us being able to do the coverage that we do. And so you want to join our Brina Funk fan club, send your check and money order. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million. Get your audio version on Audible. We'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Alennis, and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
What's up? It's Tammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, let's bring in our panel. Joining us right now is Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. Matt coming in with the funky background. Go full screen. So, Matt, where you in? A studio or something? Recording studio? No, go full screen on Matt. What you doing?
No, I'm in the Valley. I had a hearing down here, so I'm at the bottom of the map, and I wanted to make sure I honored my commitment to be with you, brother, so I'm here from my colleague's office.
Yeah, so do this here. Send Matt our logo, so when he got TV, he can throw the logo in the background so he can look real official.
No doubt. Thank you.
Kelly Bethea, communications strategist out of D.C. Michael Imhotep, host African History Network show out of Detroit. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Man, I'll start with you. It's the sheer BS of Republicans. I mean, they draw the lines in 2022. Courts say, y'all screwing black people. That was way more than enough time to redraw them. The Supreme Court's like, nope, freeze everything in line. Now we're in 2023, they're like, yeah, we don't know if we're gonna have enough time to redraw them. It's just, dude, it's October. The primary, it's like, y'all stop it. Just stop it. But this is what white Republicans are doing. Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, all of these, Texas, all of these places to screw over black voters.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And on top of that, what's interesting about it is it's kind of along the lines of a lot of the states' rights stuff that you hear. I mean, you're starting to hear that they are, or see rather, that they're just completely eschewing what the federal courts say. The Supreme Court has made a decision. You would think that they would honor that. But this made me think kind of Brown v. Board of Education, right? The fact that we had to have 2 Browns for them to say, hey, you need to implement what we told you to do. And it's the same idea here, with the exception that you have the Alabama court and then the other case. And in this case, the Louisiana officials just saying we're not going to abide by it. And here, obviously, what they're doing is changing, moving the goalpost relative to whatever their goal is at that time. But as Cliff alluded to earlier, and as you've always said, this is a matter of divesting black people of power, period, right? Because if it were really about the speed with which the maps were redrawn and adopted, then we wouldn't have this issue. They could have been done a lot faster. But when your goal is to take the power away from the people and not create a new district, you're going to do whatever you can to delay that. And that's precisely what you're seeing here.
And the thing here, Kelly, they don't care. All of these so-called law and order people, they are purposely saying, the hell with the courts. If we don't like the ruling, we're going to ignore them.
Well, the thing about these people who are so law and order oriented is that it's not about law and order that they want to abide by. It's law and order that they want to impose on others so that they can preserve their power. That's really all the law and order is about in this regard. So it doesn't surprise me, the hypocrisy. It doesn't surprise me, the hubris, that they are dragging their feet on this issue, that they are so afraid of losing, that they are frankly fighting a losing battle, again, because of their hubris and their blatant racism and their innate desire to stay in power. So like the person before us said, it is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And, it's just indicating just how much of a losing battle that they have.
Check this out, Michael. So go to my iPad. This is the Washington Post story. Ohio's GOP supermajority tests limits of democracy before abortion vote. Look at this here. They literally have been ignoring the directives of everyone. Even when you read this story, look at this here. Republican leaders here repeatedly defied directives from the state's highest court to fix gerrymandered electoral maps, leaving the process in chaos and residents voting in districts with unconstitutional boundaries. They enacted more restrictive voter laws that hurt younger, less affluent Ohioans. And now they're attempting to strip the state school board of its powers after Democrats gained control in last November's election. This is what they do. This is what they do. Yes. They literally are saying, and we see this in North Carolina, in Wisconsin, their dealers like, okay, voters, y'all decided? Nah, we're stripping powers. And then for them, how do you ignore your state Supreme Court? Yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're not redrawing lines. But that's what Alabama tried with the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, Roland, once again, this is white supremacy rearing its ugly head. And the states that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, I can't remember if you said Florida or not, but all of those states are former Confederate states. And when you go back and look at their constitution, their state constitutions, and I wish Cliff was here because I had a question for him. When we look at the Alabama state constitution of 1901, it was written primarily to codify white supremacy. That's not me saying that. That's the Encyclopedia of Alabama says that when they talk about the 1901 state constitution, which imposed poll taxes and literacy tests. When we look at this right here, this is a fight for raw, naked power. And Democracy Docket had an article that talked about the gerrymandering that took place with the maps for the 2022 midterm elections. And Republicans basically won because of those gerrymandered districts and Democrats, including especially with Alabama. Okay, here you have African Americans who are 27% of the population in Alabama, but they only have one majority black district. So this is a fight for raw, naked power. I think was extremely important in places like Louisiana, in places like Alabama, is to connect policies to who's in office, to how it's impacting African Americans, their conditions, lowest in education, high poverty rates, high incarceration rates. Directly connect that to who's in office, to the policies that they put in place, to how it's negatively impacting African Americans, to show them why we have to vote and vote continuously and vote these people out of office.
And see, Matt, this is my deal, and I make it perfectly clear. I don't care what anybody has to say. This is why I will not support any Republican. I don't care who you are, because what they are trying to do is literally destroy the will of the people. Hell, where Michael is in Michigan, the voters there created a commission to redraw lines. You know what these fools said? Yeah, we're just gonna ignore that. I mean, they literally are in Ohio, they tried to change, they wanted to try to raise the number to 60% for a statewide amendment because they saw what was coming when it came to abortion. They spent $54 million trying to stop the special election. Then they called a special session to stop the initiative before even there was the election. These people will do anything to thwart democracy. And what pisses me off, what's pissing me off in Louisiana, is we're not voting, so therefore we're making it easier for them to do what they do. And I see you change your background. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna change it again to do a logo, but I got you. But in any event, you're exactly right. And again, it's a matter of moving goalposts, and beyond just moving goalposts. What's particularly problematic is, they're a lot of times the ones who try to quote, the will of the people. If you look in Ohio, if I remember correctly, they had an election and the people denied, or rather shot down, that constitutional amendment they sought. So, at some point you have to live by the edicts that you're calling on your own. And I think that this is really indicative of this crisis in representative democracy that we see. We see politicians who are making decisions that are expeditious for them and their political careers, and not particularly for their constituents, nor for the will of the good, if you will, the good of the people. So that doesn't surprise me. And I think it's really an astute point to mention that you can't support any Republican, because the Republican Party these days is eating itself alive and is getting further and further out into the extremes. And you have no credibility if you continue to carry that GOP banner, watching the direct assaults on democracy and freedom that their party is espousing these days.
The thing here that is crazy to me, Kelly and then Michael, is that, again, when you look at what's happening, Republicans in North Carolina are trying to pass a bill that will exempt them from making any of their records and their staff public. Now, it applies to everybody else in the state, but not the Republican legislature. Kelly?
When you have a situation in which you are losing, I don't know anybody who knows they are losing who still plays by those rules. They will do anything they possibly can to make the game in their favor and hope out for a win. The same principle applies here. It is not that Republicans don't know what the rules are. It is not even that Republicans weren't in the room when the rules were made. The problem is they are losing. because they have siloed themselves into this very narrow path of white supremacy, of racism, of bigotry, of elitism, of superiority, that they have shrunk themselves in their ideology to the point where they can't branch out for fear of them, again, losing. So what do? You change the rules of the game, or frankly, like you just said in North Carolina, ignore the rules of the game. It doesn't apply to me because I'm losing. What does it matter? So again, like I said before, nothing here surprises me. It's just a matter of, what are Democrats going to do about it? What are progressives going to do about it? When we have the rule book, when we know what they're going to do, when we have a history of what they have done, what are we going to do in terms of leveraging this information to make sure that Republicans don't repeat a win by way of cheating?
Go to my iPad, Michael. This is from, again, the Washington Post article. Though voters in 2015 and 2018 approved constitutional amendments designed to make the process of drawing districts for both the legislature and Congress more fair, the 2001 redistricting committee process erupted in chaos when the GOP-led redistricting commission repeatedly pressed forward with state legislative maps found to be unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court. They don't care. They don't give a damn. These people have to be stopped.
Absolutely. They have to be stopped in the North. They have to be stopped in the South. They have to be stopped out West. They have to be stopped in the East. White supremacy is white supremacy. I don't care where it is geographically. And then when I was looking at the article from National Public Radio dealing with North Carolina legislatures criticized for exempting itself from public records law, it seems like they think some type of lawsuit or investigation may be coming. And they're trying to protect themselves from this, the North Carolina state legislature. So this is why, people have to understand that politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and impacts every aspect of our lives. And, the conversation you had talking about Gary Chambers, conversation you had with Cliff Albright, the reason why many of our people don't fight back is because many of our people, unfortunately, don't think that we're fighting for. Okay, when you've been dehumanized, when you listen to music that calls you an N-word and B's and H's, things like this, you will internalize that and think that you don't deserve anything better. So we have to understand that these people work for us. We have the ability to fire them. We deserve better. Okay, and we have to continue fighting until we win.
Last point, folks. Go to my iPad again. So this is what Republicans did in Ohio, and I'm trying to tell you. This is Ohio, this is Texas, this is Florida, this is all across this country. In 2001, GOP leaders passed a law making appellate and Supreme Court races partisan for the first time in more than a century. Guess what happened? Those Republicans took control of the state Supreme Court. They threw out lawsuits challenging those state lines. Well, guess what? Now you have a former Supreme Court Chief Justice in Ohio, Maureen O'Connor. She's now leading an effort to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot in 2024 requiring a citizen-led commission to draw future maps. They're going to do everything they can to stop all of this. And so we have to understand how to use our power. Speaking of that, about to go to break. We come back. We're going to talk to the brother who's running for governor of Louisiana. He needs resources. He needs votes to be able to win. Louisiana's Democratic governor right now. If the same folk who vote for John Bel Edwards vote for my next guest, he's governor. But I keep asking, black folks in Louisiana, where are you? And where are all these old loudmouth folks who on YouTube who are from Louisiana? It's amazing how quiet they are, but they love questioning folks like me and others when we're talking about doing stuff for black folks. Oh, yeah, I know who I'm talking about. Don't make me call your name. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, 2 facts that you need to be aware of. African American women have the highest diagnosis of breast cancer than any other group in the U.S. And young African American women are most likely to be diagnosed with one of the highest aggressive forms of breast cancer than all other groups. It is a disease that requires fast action, determination, and a whole lot of support. On our next show, we'll meet a young woman who's chosen an alternative path and approach to tackling this disease. And you'll hear from our medical and support experts on how to maintain balance through it all.
We encourage exercise. We encourage, changing diet and making, all those personal changes.
That's on the next A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Marissa Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC.
Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, Louisiana has a election taking place in a little more than a week. And right now you have the governor's race that is on the ballot. Now, John Bel Edwards is the current governor. He's not running for re-election, term limited. And so he is going to be stepping aside. But on the Democratic side, Dr. Shawn Wilson is running. And here's the issue here, folks. He can win if folks vote. Let me say it again. He can win if folks vote. 900,000 African Americans in that state who can vote. The question is, are they going to turn out? But also, when you have your other progressive and white Democrats in the state. He is the former Transportation Secretary of Louisiana. He joins us right now. Dr. Shawn Wilson, glad to have you here on the show. So I saw, before I came on the air, I saw a story that said, that showed you got about $700,000 in your campaign coffers. Your opponent has more than $5 million, but you're running second to him. And so you're doing a whole lot with little. But let's talk about how critically important it is for you to turn your voters out in early voting period, which ends tomorrow.
Well, good afternoon, Roland, to you and your listeners, brother. I'm happy to be with you. I am Shawn Wilson, candidate for governor. And you are absolutely right in your lead-in that if we turn out, we win. We've got 32% African Americans. That's 900,000 votes here in the state of Louisiana. And as it stands today in early voting, after 6 days of early voting, we are 10 to 12% less than where we were in 2019. And if our voters show up, we absolutely win. And I think you hit a highlight that says we are right on message, we are right on our approach, and we're right on the experience as the best qualified candidate in the field of 15 candidates. I am running number 2. And I am number 4 or 5 in terms of funding because we have not had the resources that others have had. My leading opponent, Jeff Landry, has been Attorney General for the last 7.5 years. He's been absent for his responsibilities in terms of being the chief law enforcement officer of our state. And he's been campaigning for those 7.5 years. So he started this race with about $10 to $12 million. And we've raised right over $2 million and have done a really good job. And I've been running since March. I was on your show, I believe, back in April. We've been running since March, and we absolutely need more support financially to get out and motivate our constituents to vote. That's the only way we're going to win. And the fact that we do not have the down ballot races, that doesn't intimidate me. It does hurt the turnout a little bit, but the more resources we have, the more we can turn out our vote, because the future of Louisiana absolutely depend on it. When you think about the record of the candidate that I'm running against, Jeff Landry, it is an abysmal record in terms of fairness and justice and leadership that we need here in the state of Louisiana.
What support are you getting nationally? Is it Democratic Governors Association? Is it Democratic National Committee? You getting any help from the White House?
Well, we are absolutely getting help that John Bell didn't get in 2015. You know, let me just give you the statistics. When I started, my name recognition was higher than John Bell's was. He ran for a year and a half before he raised $1 million. I've only been running for 6 months, and we've hit the $2 million mark. We actually have the full support of the DGA, and their efforts have shown up in a big way and have made a big difference for what we've been able to do. And we continue to work with them. That's the Democratic Governors Association. And we've met with the Democratic Party. There's more that can be done because we've got leaders and investors in campaigns like mine all over the country. And I'm asking you today, make a difference, because you pointed out this is a Democratic governor right now. We've had 8 good years, going on 8 good years of leadership. And there are only 3 races across the country. And these are the last races before we get to the 2024 presidential race. You've got a race in Kentucky. You've got a race in Mississippi. Both of those have an incumbent governor running for re-election, one being challenged in Mississippi by Brandon Presley. And then you have this open seat, where I'm the only African-American candidate in this top tier. And guess what? I'm the most qualified with 25 years of service in Republican and Democratic administrations. And so we need resources on the ground to help motivate this, whether it's independent expenditures or supporting our campaign. It will make an amazing difference in terms of turnout for the vote that matters. And you said it best. Tomorrow is the end of early voting, and the race can be won or lost in early voting. We know that for a fact. We saw the narrow margin that John Bell won in 2019 was less than what you had in early voting. So it does make a difference for us to get people out to the polls tomorrow, but more importantly, to get them to the polls also on the 14th. And here's what else is happening on the 14th. We have a large HBCU network. We've got the only HBCU system in the world today in Louisiana. Southern's homecoming is on Election Day. Gramblin's homecoming is on Election Day. LSU has a major home game. And then the Saints are going to be in Texas on the Sunday after the election. And so we've got lots of distractions. All the more reason why we need to motivate each and every Democratic voter in the state of Louisiana to show up tomorrow in big numbers and have a record turnout. We need people to get on their phones, make calls, send texts, to bring 20 people with you, bring 50 people with you. That's how we're going to win this election.
You talked about that. So for let people know, let's walk us through this here. So the election is October 14th. Does the winner have to get 50 plus 1? And if that doesn't happen, is there a runoff?
Yes, we have what's called the jungle primary, where the top 2 vote getters actually advance to a runoff. And here in Louisiana, the numbers are in our favor. We've got 6 candidates in the race. Jeff Landry has avoided debates. He has ducked and dodged the conversation. The day he qualified, he went out the side door or the back door to not talk to the press. Here's what's most embarrassing for Louisiana. This is the candidate who avoided a major debate in the city of New Orleans that was statewide televised because it was sponsored by the Urban League. And he actually said the Urban League was a radical organization and he didn't have to go talk to him. This is a guy who invited people to leave the state of Louisiana if they disagreed with him. And so this jungle primary, as it's called, he is sitting in the polls, and we're about 5 points behind him right now, but everybody else is 20 points behind me. And so the numbers are such that neither of us are going to get 51% or 50% plus 1 vote in the primary. All the more reason why we have to mobilize, get people to the polls, and ensure that we have a very strong turnout. We've got about 20% of our electorate right now is undecided. A large part of that should be the vote that will come to me in terms of Democratic votes here in the state of Louisiana. And so we deserve to have them out. We've got to motivate them. And you know, and I know, Brother Roland, that there's pressure that comes from the outside in terms of people mobilizing. Go back and look at how this nation galvanized around leaders that we've recently elected. Look at our brother in Maryland, how it was a national effort to pinpoint that motivation to get out to the polls. And that's what we need here in Louisiana. There's too much on the line. You just got through talking about a 2nd congressional district. The fact that Louisiana is in the same boat of Alabama and we have the same kind of resistance, and the Attorney General, the guy I'm running against, has led the charge where the judge was going to, I believe, draw the districts, and he's gotten an injunction. And so my grandmother, my family would always say, when people show you who they are, believe them. When they tell you who they are, You take him at their word. He has shown us that he is not interested in doing what is right and just for the state of Louisiana. And we need the entire nation to come in Louisiana, invest your resources, and support a candidate that can do that job.
So let's walk through this. So if it comes down to both of you, you come in first or second on October 14th, it goes to a runoff. When is the runoff?
The runoff is November 18th. That gives very little time to mobilize, but it means we can't raise a dime for the runoff election until you're in the runoff. That's just one of the nuances of Louisiana politics. And so we've raised a pretty good amount of money. We're going to spend it well. We're going to have folks on the street knocking on doors. We're phone banking. We're emailing. We're texting. We're talking to citizens. I've got over 46,000 miles on my car since March 10th. So in this runoff, it's going to be a sprint for the next 5.5 weeks until November 18th. And we're going to win this election. I believe we're going to win it. We're going to be mobilized. This will be a history-making opportunity because this will be the first time that we've had more than 8 years of Democratic leadership. And let's go back and look at what's on the line. Day one, John Bel Edwards did Medicaid expansion, granting benefits to 500,000 people in this state that struggles with poverty. And guess what? Jeff Landry actually sued the state of Louisiana to stop it. He suggested that the opioid epidemic is a result of Medicaid expansion. That's the kind of leader that he professes to be. And so not only is that on the ballot, and think about education. We had a $2 billion surplus, and we have some really bad health outcomes and some really bad educational outcomes. We couldn't even find a way to give our teachers a recurring raise with a $2 billion surplus. Somebody's got to stand up for teachers. Somebody's got to stand up for the kids to make the kinds of investments, to grow a workforce, to build a better Louisiana. Jeff Landry is not the guy to do it. The guy to do it is me, Shawn Wilson. I've been doing it for 25 years, building bridges and not burning them.
Question I have for you here is, again, you laid out in terms of this particular process. And so let's say you come in first or second. Now you got that 1 month. For folks who don't know, are you planning rallies in different places around the state? But for African Americans, what are the critical 3 or 4 cities that you need big Black turnout? Obviously New Orleans, obviously that. But outside of New Orleans, what are those 3 or 4 areas that you would want, let's say, outside organizations or volunteers or fraternities and sororities or other groups to be focusing on to turn out numbers?
Great question. You know, the 3 most Democratic cities, the three of the top largest cities in Louisiana are New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport. And they happen to be the same places, by the way, that the Attorney General, Jeff Landry, actually tried to pass a law to say juvenile offenders' information was transparent before they were found guilty. But here's the kicker: only if it was New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport. As unconstitutional as that is, our chief legal advisor, the chief attorney for the state, tried to pass a constitutional amendment or tried to pass a law to make that reality here in the state. That is what we're dealing with. So that is the exact communities that we need to turn out, where we need to invest. This attorney general has targeted district attorneys in both of those areas of New Orleans and Shreveport. All of them had African-American mayors. He's targeted them. He has not worked well with those communities that are representative of the base of audience that we have here, or the largest concentration of the Divine Nine. Think about what that looks like for us to attack those cities and not work to elevate those cities, not to build those cities and invest in infrastructure and education and healthcare and deal with the fentanyl crisis in those cities. So those are the 3 most important areas in terms of getting votes. Those are the areas that carried John Bel Edwards to victory. But beyond that, we have rural communities here that are very large in terms of having a Democratic population, and we're going to be targeting those as well. We're going to be rallying, we're going to be traveling, we're going to be communicating and targeting that footprint to get those voters to the polls.
So let's do this here. I don't know how much time we have with you. I got 3 panelists. They want to be able to ask a question. You got time?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let me do this.
Absolutely.
Here. I'm going to go to a quick break, then we're going to come back. Panel, get your questions ready. We're talking to Dr. Shawn Wilson, folks. He is running for governor of Louisiana. Tomorrow is the last day of early voting. If you are watching and listening, I need you to call and email and text your family and friends, frat brothers, sorority sisters in Louisiana, and tell them we need y'all to vote. We also need you to do the exact same thing when it comes to supporting financially as well. Running for office ain't easy. We can't keep talking about we need more African Americans in office. We can't keep talking about we need to be able to assume power if we don't use our power at the ballot box. And so we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
All change is not growth.
Right.
But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we talk about the principles of mindset, strategy, and execution. This week, we're adding a fourth, faith. You're going to hear from a mother and daughter duo who are helping thousands of black women build wealth, all through their faith.
You are more than you can ever imagine. Not just obtaining things to show that, but seeing yourself.
Making your faith work for you. That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat at the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up? Geek Today in the place to be. Got Kicked Out Your Mama's University, creator and executive producer of Fat Tuesdays, an air hip-hop comedy. But right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
Folks, we're talking with Dr. Shawn Wilson, gubernatorial candidate in the state of Louisiana. He's with us right now. I want to go to my panel with questions. First off, Kelly Bethea.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I was reading your blurb on NOLA.com, and you mentioned how, as well as in this segment, how there's almost 1 million voters that you can tap into. Aside from the voter suppression and the blatant redlining and racism that has been happening in Louisiana, what, if anything else, do you think is the root cause of the lack of voter participation? And what can you, as a candidate, if anything, do to address that?
Great question. You know, I think some of the challenge that we have in terms of the motivation of those 900,000+ voters has to do with the value that they're receiving from government and what we're actually doing. I'm talking about issues that matter to them. I'm talking about things like affordable housing, things like juvenile assessment centers, things like reentry programs. You know, we have a state that we've been an incarceration capital for decades. We have over 25,000 people incarcerated in the state of Louisiana that are disproportionately African Americans, which means they have family members and extended family here in Louisiana. The Attorney General has said, let's bring back executions and firing squads. That's the kind of advanced policies he wants to push. He doesn't want to talk about giving people reentry programs where they come out of prison with a skill set to become a taxpayer and not a tax burden, that they have a job and that they have better skills and training than when they went in. No one's going to talk about the literacy issue and what happens in public education and how 40% of our third graders aren't going to be reading on grade level and then could potentially be held back, no one's going to start crying until they say, wait a minute, you didn't do anything and now they're in third grade. I'm talking about investing in those young people, those minds from 0 to 4, and making sure that we remediate those kindergartners, first graders, and second graders who might not have come to school prepared to learn. And those are the children of the folks in this community, and they are so burdened with having low wages in the state that they aren't self-actualizing and going after these bigger, more important issues. And so there's apathy in terms of the voting issue, but I also think there's an apathy in terms of getting the value of government, and that's what I want to make sure that we give to the communities all across Louisiana.
Matt?
I too read your positions, Dr. Wilson, and I share them. I like your position on the death penalty, on quality of life, and the Medicaid expansion. I want to get down to brass tacks. What do you anticipate you need when you get to the general to compete with Landry? I mean, obviously you want as much as you can raise, but is there a target number? And in addition to that, what is your thought about how social media can be used to obviously magnify your message?
You know, Governor Edwards, when he ran, I think the last time in 15, he looked at about $5.5 million to be spent in a month. We're going to need that same amount of money to be competitive. The difference between me and that other guy, not only is it policy and experience and my level of competence, but it's also the fact that he's been in the public space for 8 years. And so we have to spend extra money to build up name recognition and be out there, because I had my head down doing the job, getting things done, building infrastructure, growing business, creating jobs, making life safer. So we need to target somewhere between $4 and $6 million between October 15th and November 17th. And we're going to have to leave it all out on the field. That's how we're going to have to do it. And here's where social media comes in. Here's where these opportunities come in. Campaigns have become so targeted, so directed, and you get to live somewhat in the vacuum. And if we can, in that social media space, educate people that this is really an issue. We send a whole lot of text going on. We have a whole lot of group messages. We have a whole lot of social media posts about things that are all nice and fun and good, but it doesn't have anything to do with making us safer, making our communities healthier and smarter, and creating wealth in our neighborhoods and in our state. And so I need everybody on social media to galvanize, to talk about these issues, to hold this other guy accountable for these really arcane, extreme positions. This is an attorney general who has joined with 12 other attorneys general across the states of these United States to track where mothers and children go for health care outside of Louisiana. What on earth does that have to do with anything in terms of what a governor has to do? We're banning library books. We're holding faculty accountable and threatening tenure and free speech. These are things that are on the line, and unless we stop it here, it's going to permeate. We've seen what happens in other states where we just go unchecked and we allow these things to go on. We don't need that in Louisiana. We are better than that in terms of embracing environments, embracing diversity, and building a community and having a welcoming environment. That is what we need to perpetuate. And that's where social media can hold these guys accountable for these really bad policies, but also support really good policies and make an investment. And by the way, your listeners can visit us at wilson4la.com. That's WILSONFORLA.com. You can sign up to volunteer, to donate. You can also learn about policies and issues. And we are found at that same handle on all social media platforms. So this is an opportunity to engage from wherever you are to make a difference in Louisiana.
Michael.
Dr. Wilson, I know we've been talking about the low voter turnout among African Americans in early voting. In the previous segment with Cliff Albright, we spoke about that as well. What do you attribute the voter apathy when it comes to African Americans? What do you attribute that to? And then also, how do you connect policy to what it is, to the top 2 or 3 issues that African Americans say that they want? How do you connect policy to that, to show them the connection between policy and conditions?
So the apathy, Brother Hotep, I believe, has been, Imhotep, has been the fact that folks might not see the value of what a governor can do. The fact that the governor vetoed legislation that eliminated that 2nd congressional district in Louisiana, that he eliminated over 317 bills that were really bad policy for people and that they did not become law. And so that apathy has to do with people not appreciating the defensive position that you have to be in sometimes, and not necessarily the offensive opportunity you have to get things done. In terms of policy and what can happen, think about what happens when you have over 60% of our population depending on Medicare and Medicaid, and you lose that Medicaid opportunity. Think about what happens in a state where young people, particularly people from Black and brown communities, have disproportionate outcomes of illiteracy or disproportionate health outcomes, and we lose the opportunity to make the kinds of curriculum investments and public schools investments that will be necessary so that they can grow and develop their minds to be competent working adults in this country. Think about what happens when you build infrastructure and the choices that you make. Those are policies that I will present. I can go back to my tenure as Secretary of Transportation, where we increased the diverse business enterprise participation, not from 7% to 8%, but we went to 16%, creating wealth in communities that are representative of the communities where those projects were. That is progress. And those are the things I think that citizens sometimes disconnect with in terms of policies. Think about criminal justice reform. We just made some phenomenal reforms back in 2017. We have yet to fully implement them. And all of a sudden, the discussion is rolling them back, increasing the number of people that we're going to put in jail, particularly nonviolent offenders that might have 15, 20 years. We've just done away with unanimous jury. And so where will we stop the rollback? Those are the issues from a policy perspective that our constituents have to think about, because their vote actually impacts those things. Your vote will ensure that you have some normalcy and not have extreme policies that are going to do more damage than good in your neighborhood, in your community, in your home. These are issues that we absolutely have to address.
All right.
Thank you.
Again, Dr. Shawn Wilson, tell folks where they can go to get more information on your campaign.
Absolutely. You can visit us online at wilson4la.com. That's WILSON4LA.com. You can visit us on X or Twitter. You can visit us on Facebook and Instagram at that same handle, Wilson4LA. Text people that you know in Louisiana. Everybody's got somebody connected to Louisiana. You need to find your family, your friends, your grandma and them, your mama and them, all of them. Call them and say to them, get active, get involved, go vote, because number 16 is the only place you can vote on this ticket that's going to get you 16 good years of leadership, of progress, coming back from those gentle years where we had a $2 billion deficit to a $2 billion surplus. Now we need to spend that money appropriately on issues that matter to make our communities safer, smarter, healthier, and wealthier. And I'm that candidate, and I appreciate the opportunity and welcome the help and encouragement and the financial investment to take the fight to Jeff Landry that he absolutely deserves.
All right. Frat, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother. It's good seeing you, man.
All right, 06. All right, folks. Going to a break. We come back. Last night, Reverend Dr. William Barber, we carried it live. Some of his speech in Kentucky. They were rallying people there to get out the vote. Same thing is happening right now in Florida. Melanie Campbell with the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation will join us. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Coming up next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network, Shanita Hubbard.
We're talking about the ride or die chick. We're breaking it down. The stereotype of the strong Black woman.
Some of us are operating with it as if it's a badge of honor. Like, you even hear Black women like aspiring to be this ride or die chick, aspiring to be this strong Black woman trope at their own expense.
Next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Marissa Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC. Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, voting organizations are out here in these streets all over the country. You've got in Louisiana, you got some students at Southern University. They're doing all they can to get the vote out. Check out this video that they put out on the Southern University's website.
So today we're doing some bus rides to the polls. We're also doing some voter education using some of the literature that we have from our partners, Power Coalition. We want to make sure that students are aware that the election for the governor's race, as well as legislative seats, DESE, and other seats, it's on an important day for us, our homecoming. We want to make sure that voter suppression is eliminated. So we want to make sure that we secure our vote by voting early. So our initiative today is to make sure that every student on Southern's campus is aware that early voting has started and ends on October 7th and votes before the October 14th election, so that we don't have to get in the way of missing homecoming, missing the parade, missing the game. We can have fun on that day instead of having to worry about voting, right? So we can worry about voting early on and we can have fun later on.
Folks, in Louisiana, in Florida, the same thing is happening. The National Coalition of Black Civic Participation and the Power of the Ballot Action Fund kicking off their 2024 Black Voter Mobilization Campaign, The Power of the Ballot. We Will Not Be Erased, Vote 2024. The national campaign and Florida statewide tour is taking place. Melanie Campbell, President and CEO of the coalition, joins us right now from their first stop in Jacksonville. So Melanie, glad to have you. So what exactly are y'all doing there? Is it rallies, door-to-door, door knocking, street sweeps? What's going on?
Thank you, Roland. Oh, wow.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead. Don't worry about it. Did we lose Melanie? All right, did we lose Melanie? Okay, all right, folks. No, actually, I still see her there in remote one. We got her? Okay, so just all right, Melanie, we got you. We got you. Go ahead.
Hey, Roland, thank you so much. Yes, we're down here in Florida. You know what we always say, we got to start early. So we said we're going to start early. And so we're starting in Florida to get ready for 2024 and also make sure that we're lifting up the critical issues that are impacting us. When you talk about the impact when it comes to rights and freedoms and attacks on everything, I call it a tsunami of attacks from voting rights to reproductive rights to diversity and inclusion, to Black history, to public schools, to workers' rights. And this is my home state where I grew up. And so one of the things we said we wanted to do was make sure we started early. And part of that is really, we started rolling. We didn't start with a press conference. We started knocking on doors right there in Jacksonville, Florida, where we started knocking on doors this evening, talking to folks, leaving information, because there are some local races across the state. And the other thing that folks said, don't just come for a rally and leave. And so we built through our state affiliate with Solange Benton as our leader here with the Florida Coalition on Black Civic Participation. She's working with coalitions that all across the state and not reinventing a wheel. So and then we also have national partners that we're marrying the two. State leaders and national leaders working together to build a coalition focus on just what we say, power of the ballot, and how we have to protect those rights, in many cases regain those rights, and also sustain them. And so that's what we're doing. And so we're starting in Jacksonville this weekend. Next weekend, we're going to Daytona and Central Florida. And then the following weekend, we'll be down in South Florida. And then we're closing out in Tallahassee. And we're working with a lot of local grassroots organizations and leaders. And there's an HBCU component rolling. So we're Edward Waters College, Bethune-Cookman, Edward Waters University now, tomorrow. Next week, we'll be at Bethune-Cookman Homecoming. The following weekend, we'll be at Florida Memorial and then FAMU. But we're also in community where we're doing work. And so we're doing listening sessions. We have a piece rolling with focus on Black men. So that the Black Men's Roundtable down here and other organizations, we want to hear from our folks what they want out of their vote. How do we leverage that vote? And how do we push back on so much white supremacy down here and racism down here? But it's not just Florida. Florida is just a microcosm of what it looks like when we say, what does a fascist state look like? Look at Florida. Look at Texas, right? Look at some of the things that are going on across this country. And we know that democracy, as flawed as it is really on the ballot this year. And so we're doing everything we can to start early.
I'm a firm believer in connecting the dots, and I'm always reminding people, Andrew Gillum lost by 30,000 votes when he ran for governor. There were a lot of Black folks who did not vote. The people who were complaining about what Ron DeSantis had been doing, had folks turned out, he's never in the governor's mansion.
Right. That's a fact. And by working with grassroots groups who do this, who are working year round, and working with a lot of young organizers and leaders, dream defenders, and others like that. And we're asking everybody that wants to work together. Sometimes it's hard building coalition, but we're doing the best we can to get everybody to say, hey, let's come together. Doesn't take anything away from what you're doing individually, but collectively, we can really, really be effective and support each other's work.
Absolutely. All right. Melody, keep up the good work. Again, our goal is to start early and really getting folks to understand that there are huge stakes at play here, and we've got to ensure that our power is being exercised.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roland. And come down one of the weekends if you got time.
Well, actually, I leave tonight for L.A., so I'll be in Los Angeles this weekend. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. All right, folks, going to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we talk about the principles of mindset, strategy, and execution. This week, we're adding a fourth, faith. You're going to hear from a mother and daughter duo who are helping thousands of Black women build wealth, all through their faith.
You are more than you can ever imagine. Not just obtaining things to show that, but seeing yourself.
Making your faith work for you. That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All change is not growth.
Right.
But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, 2 facts that you need to be aware of. African American women have the highest diagnosis of breast cancer than any other group in the U.S. And young African American women are most likely to be diagnosed with one of the highest aggressive forms of breast cancer than all other groups. It is a disease that requires fast action, determination, and a whole lot of support. On our next show, we'll meet a young woman who's chosen an alternative path and approach to tackling this disease. And you'll hear from our medical and support experts on how to maintain balance through it all.
We encourage exercise. We encourage, changing diet and making, all those personal changes.
That's on the next A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Proud.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder, Disney Plus. And I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
September's job report saw some gains while the overall unemployment rate remained steady. 336,000 jobs were added. Unemployment did not see a change from August, a slight increase. But the reality is this was still held as good news. Even the folks at Fox Business were like, oh my God, a blockbuster report. The overall unemployment rate for African Americans rose a bit, but the rate for black men increased as the rate for black women fell. Joining us right now to break down all of these numbers is Morgan Harper from the American Economic Liberties Project. Morgan, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So it is quite interesting to seeing the folks who normally are trashing President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, just be disappointed every month because they're waiting for a bad jobs report, and they actually haven't been able to get that for quite some time.
Yeah, I think that's right. And today, when we see that expectations of job creation more than doubled where a lot of economists are, and as I'm sure you know, economists are not optimistic people. So for that rate to be doubled, that is quite a feat, and hard for anyone to deny that, we must be seeing the economy the overall numbers to still be pretty strong for the economy. And unemployment being, low, staying steady, though, I'm glad that you're noting, of course, as we're accustomed to seeing, a bit of a disparity between Black unemployment and the overall number. but still staying steady and relatively low. And this type of level of low unemployment, under 4% for the overall number, we haven't seen, the New York Times reporting since the late 1960s. So very, very unusual time right now that we're living in some ways good, but I think overall folks don't have a clear sense of where we're headed and what exactly, is driving a lot of consumer sentiment that the economy isn't strong.
Again, yeah, first of all, they just losing their minds. But what about all of these damn economists who were yelling and screaming, recession, recession, recession? I mean, I swear, and the reason I'm saying that is because when I look at a lot of this polling data, and I see people talking about, oh my God, how things are so awful, I absolutely believe, okay, and I'm not ignoring people who are facing issues. I'm not ignoring inflation, but I'm also acknowledging that inflation also was driven by corporate greed. But what's crazy to me is I think when you have all these people who think that the world is falling, it's because that's all they heard every day on mainstream media. And even when there was good news, it was portrayed as, but around the corner, it's falling apart.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there are certainly a lot of people that want the president to fail, and they want people to think that the economic policy decisions, of which, there have been a lot of good ones that have been part of Bidenomics as they're billing it, that are not having any impact, and they are. But I do think it's important to note that there's some indicators that we need to keep watching. So the fact that we have now hit a record level of credit card debt. We're also seeing very high levels of auto loan debt among Americans. That's something to pay attention to, especially as interest rates have been increasing. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the media coverage drives it, but I do think also that there is this idea that somehow the economy is not fair. And so when you ask people a straight up question, how do you feel about where you are and where you're headed? Then I think if folks overall are a little bit discontented about the future, then that might be driving some of their responses as well.
Questions from the panel. Matt, you're first.
Yeah, so my question, Morgan, is the numbers, how do they represent the gig economy, and to what extent is that still playing into the numbers? And I ask specifically because obviously we know a lot of people are still engaged in Uber, Lyfts, other things, I guess that would be subsumed in the gig economy, and I'm interested in how that factors into this jobs report.
Yeah, so I think that you're raising a good point that this isn't fully comprehensive data, and for a lot of people that's not going to be full-time employee, they're not on payroll, and that's really what drives a lot of these unemployment numbers. And I think that is getting to what Roland and I were just talking about. If your lifestyle to earn money is that you're hopping through a few different types of jobs, you're doing Uber, you might have some kind of job that involves you going into a physical workplace, retail plus Uber, then when you get asked, how are you feeling about things, you might exactly say, it's like, I'm not feeling great. I'm seeing Uber taking upwards of 50% of every ride that I'm doing for themselves, and I get none of it. I'm starting to see, I don't know if you all too, people with their Uber drivers are posting screenshots of the receipts from the driver where they're seeing how much of their money is not going to that person that they just had a great conversation with, that made sure they got home safely at night. It's going directly to the pockets of Uber shareholders. So yeah, I think it's a great question, important to point out some of these distinctions and how a lot of this data is not fully capture the economic experience of a lot of Americans right now, especially those earning the lowest incomes.
Michael.
Hello, Morgan. When we look at this jobs report, overall is good. It was stunning. You have people rooting against America, hoping for a bad jobs report. But we do see that the unemployment rate for African-American men did tick up a little bit. What do you attribute that to, and what do you think can be done to address that issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat hard to identify exactly what the cause of that might be. I'll speak to, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and just the other day I was driving around and seeing that, construction, because there's always a lot of construction going on in Columbus, Ohio, but you don't see a lot of Black men in construction jobs. And so when we say that we're excited, we're getting back to manufacturing, we're having better industrial policy for the U.S., but we aren't having those types of jobs hitting our community, and especially the men in our community, that's a problem because, as we're looking at EV and all of these things, these are jobs of the future in the clean energy sector. Building some of these, though, I have some issues with things like big data centers and their environmental impact. Those are a lot of construction jobs as well. And if we don't have Black men that are filling some of these opportunities in the growing industries, then, that's going to be potentially one of the factors driving this unemployment.
Kelly?
So as glowing as this jobs report was, a lot of the talk today has been, we had a great jobs report, but, and a lot of that but part was regarding the interest rate and the Fed possibly doing something regarding the interest rate, trying to stop inflation, et cetera, et cetera. How important is the other side of that sentence, meaning, we had a great jobs report, but should it be overshadowing this good news? How worried do we have to be?
I think that we should be giving equal weight to them. And, this is something Roland and I are also discussing in the introductory portion of the conversation. A lot of folks are very disingenuous when they're trying to just bash, whatever accomplishments are happening from the administration. And we shouldn't give too much credence to that. But I do think it's important to recognize that a lot of this stuff is an art. It is not a science. And though there are people that present themselves as absolute experts, economists are many of them, not to bash economists a lot, but sometimes they deserve it. They don't really know always what's going on. How do we know? I mean, look at the financial crisis and how many people were predicting that and the long-lasting impacts from all of that. And so I do think it's important to look at the holistic picture. So yes, we have seen a very, very, very encouraging jobs report because the wage growth seems to be steady. A lot of people don't think the Fed is going to increase interest rates, but interest rates are already quite high. And so when we see something like a historic level of credit card debt that consumers are maybe also, dealing with the repayment of student loans that are kicking back in, and that's driving them to put more purchases on credit when buying a new car or leasing a car is going to be more expensive, this can potentially lead to something like a bubble bursting. Does it seem like we're there right now? No, but we need to monitor that. And the other thing I want to point out, and this is another one of the president's initiatives, is on junk fees. So, junk fees, this is like the ticket fees if you're trying to go to a concert lately or go to a hotel and they just slap on a resort fee, though you look around, it's like, I'm not at a resort. Like, where did this come from? Or if you're a business...
I hate those damn resort fees.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
I'm like, this is not a resort.
Yeah. If you just have a gym, it's not a resort. So let's just stop charging that resort fee. Yeah, absolutely. The president's trying to get rid of those. The Federal Trade Commission has been addressing junk fees. But and if you're a small business owner, what also is crazy is these swipe fees. So every time we're running our credit card, and you're doing good, supporting your local business, they're having to give a certain percentage of that to just process the transaction. So a lot of small business owners are now saying, that's my second highest expense in trying to run a small business. So these are the types of things, too, that when you're looking at the holistic picture, how's the economy going? How much money do you have in your pocket at the end of the day? If a portion of it's going to Uber if you're a driver, if another portion of it as a small business owner is going to make sure you can just process credit card transactions, if as a consumer you're trying to just have a small, simple vacation with your family, but you're having to pay another 5% on that resort fee and then another 22% tip to make up for what somebody's not paying their employee when you go out to eat, then it doesn't seem like you have a lot of money at the end of the day. And so we need to also challenge ourselves, and exactly like the question you're asking, to, yes, look at the jobs report number, but then also be real about the experiences that we, our friends, our family are having, and make sure that the government's incorporating that into how they're developing policy.
Absolutely. Well, trust me, that resort fee really pisses me off. As a matter of fact, I was at, where was I just? Oh, so I was at a conference here in D.C. at a hotel, and now they're calling it something else. Now they're calling it, I don't know, it's like club experience fee.
Right.
And it's...
So they got called out. So
it's sort of like, and here's the one that I now love because what, like some of these people are doing, so they'll be like, okay, so we have this resort fee, but then you have a credit where you can spend X amount of dollars in our, bar or restaurant. But then what's always stupid is because, again, typically if I'm going somewhere, I got events and stuff, and so you're not getting back until 10, 10:30, 11, or 12. Well, hell, the restaurant's closed, the bar's closed, and I'm like, what in the hell can I do with this damn $25? And I'm sitting here like going, really, y'all? Really? Yeah. And so again, I mean, so people, I mean, and they've been sitting here really tripping with a lot of these fees. And again, it goes back to me, the bankers with the ATM fees, and they were sitting here going, oh, well, no, we have to do this because we really can't afford all these terminals. Stop lying.
Right. Show us the data. Show us some data
right.
and see how much you actually need to run these terminals. Exactly. And, but that's the thing. When people are like, what's going on? Government's not doing anything. This is one topic where the government is absolutely doing something. Federal Trade Commission has proposed a rule to crack down on these junk fees. And it's also important for us to know, because Ticketmaster tried to do a little bit of this too. It's like, oh, well, we'll just disclose the fees up front. Transparency, all-in pricing, all good. Yeah, that's good, but that doesn't mean that the fees are coming down and we have more money. So we need to cut through the noise and make sure that we're actually just reducing the overall money that's coming out of our pocket with no value in return.
All right. Morgan, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, got to go to a break. Before we do so, they don't believe it's their hair. You can check out the curlprep.com product, folks. It works on all types of hair. You can use this code, ROLAND, lowercase letters, to get a 15% discount until October 21st. Look, you can use it in just 2 steps, a sweet butter and a sweet defining gel, both at curlprep.com. Also, parents, you can remove that ouch. Yeah, kind of important. Matt and Michael will be using this product. You can remove the ouch. You will love this system because you can get you can comb through the hair using this product. And so again, it's really important for us. Seasoned Saints, you also can love this product, and the line has products that are great for twists, braids, locks, weaves, even those wigs and extensions. It's all at curlprep.com. Again, use the code ROLAND, lowercase letters, to get a 15% discount until October 21st. You won't believe it is your hair. Folks, back in a moment.
Coming up next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network, Shanita Hubbard.
We're talking about the ride or die chick. We're breaking it down. The stereotype of the strong Black woman.
Some of us are operating with it as if it's a badge of honor. Like, you even hear Black women like aspiring to be this ride or die chick, aspiring to be this strong Black woman trope at their own expense.
Next on The Frequency, right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we talk about the principles of mindset, strategy, and execution. This week, we're adding a fourth, faith. You're going to hear from a mother and daughter duo who are helping thousands of Black women build wealth, all through their faith.
You are more than you can ever imagine. Not just obtaining things to show that, but seeing yourself.
Making your faith work for you. That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Me, Sherry Shepard, with Sammy Roman.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Carolyn Carolyn Paget Robinson has been missing from her Philadelphia home since September 29th. The 13-year-old is 4 feet 11 inches tall, weighs 100 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Carolyn has medical conditions and is without her medication. Anyone with information about Carolyn Paget Robinson is urged to call the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Police Department, 215-683-4776, 215-683-4776. Baltimore police and Morgan State University leaders have announced a $9,000 reward for information leading to an arrest of those responsible for Tuesday night's mass shooting on campus that left 5 people injured. At today's news conference, city and university officials provided an update of the investigation by confirming the number of shooters.
Due to ballistic evidence and assistance from our federal partners, I'm also now able to confirm that there were 2 shooters in the incident. We will continue to work with Morgan police and school officials to keep the community safe, updated, and any further developments as they occur. Detectives continue to review a huge amount of footage, video footage, and speak to potential witnesses every single day. The BPD and Morgan State University police are also working together to increase patrols throughout the campus and around the campus. As of this morning, 4 of the 5 victims have been released from the hospital. 1 victim remains hospitalized in stable condition.
So I want to assure that the community knows that we held their safety the utmost importance. We've made significant enhancements to our security since this incident. Those would be we detailed an armed, uniformed Morgan State University police officer to Thurgood Marshall dorm where this incident happened. Additionally, we currently have 5 residential housing dorms, and we have currently at least 1 security officer in that residential space. We've since added a second security officer to the exterior of all of our on-campus housing facilities.
On yesterday, during my cabinet meeting, we received a telephone call from Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, to express her support for this university and for us as we make our way through this period. I have also received similar calls from Governor Wes Moore, Senator Ben Cardin, Senator Van Hollen, Congressman Steny Hoyer, and a personal call from also the U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, just to name a few. This morning, I personally spoke with all 4 of the Morgan students who were injured in this incident. All 4 of them, I can report, are in good physical condition. And yes, all 4 of them experienced tremendous trauma. They were excited to hear from their university president, and I pledged to them that this university would immediately provide one-on-one counseling to each of them. And as I stand here, that is underway. We have counselors now that are outreaching to those students. As I said, they're doing well physically and about as well as one can expect them to be after experiencing this trauma.
This is truly a national treasure that on Tuesday was impacted by a national crisis. And that's the pervasive, the cowardly, the unproductive continual use of guns in our community. It's not indicative of this university and the thousands of students, the hardworking faculty, the police department, but it's more a symbolic reminder of what we face every single day in this country of these cowardly acts. I'm here to beg the students at Morgan, I'm here to beg the citizens of Baltimore to please step forward. Our federal, state, local, and campus partners have literally been working around the clock to ensure that the folks who committed this heinous act are brought to justice, to ensure that we can return the Morgan State family and community back to some sense of normalcy, and to ensure to say that the thousands upon thousands of folks that pour into creating this national treasure and keeping her going, that their work is not in vain.
That we will not let the cowardly, reckless, dark action of a few overtake the bright light of Black excellence that Morgan State University has been, is, and will continue to be for Baltimore and the world. We won't allow that to happen.
Now, folks, take a look at this video. If you recognize anyone, please call the Baltimore Police Department at 410-396-2444, 410-396-2444, 410-396-2444. These are the people who are persons of interest by Baltimore Police and Morgan State Police as well. The Georgia State troopers who fatally shot a 26-year-old environmental activist are not going to face charges. Manuel Paez Terran, who went by the name of Tortuguita, killed in January as law enforcement tried to clear protesters from the foresight of the proposed Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, dubbed Cop City by critics. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation ruled the troopers' use of deadly force was objectively reasonable under the circumstances of this case. Now, what's interesting about this, when you talk about objectively reasonable, that is quite interesting that they use that language, Matt, because of the number of shots that were actually fired. And this is one of those areas where, again, where the law in this country has literally given so much leeway to police when it comes to their particular actions. He, of course, he was alleged to have shot 4 times at officers. And there was 6 Georgia State troopers who were involved in here. And they say that so the story here is that they gave notice of intent to use a less lethal way to force the activists out of the tent using a pepper ball launcher, but that wasn't the case. And eventually, he was hit with 57 shots.
Yeah. You know, look, I mean, this is a difficult thing for me to analyze, not having all the evidence. And in order to be credible, I think I would have to have all of the evidence, because objectively reasonable is very often used as a bludgeon to cover the tracks of police who've done something wrong or other people who have done something wrong. If, in fact, shots were fired from that tent, there may be an argument and there may be the truth that it was objectively reasonable if, in fact, those shots were fired in a time where the officer's use of force was legally permissible. However, a couple things. The first thing is 57 rounds is a lot to be shot, which means obviously multiple troopers shot. And I'd be interested in knowing how many shots each one of them fired, because I think that might be integral to the analysis as to whether one officer acted appropriately under the circumstances as opposed to others, that contrast between them. But, you know, on top of that, I don't ever expect the prosecutors to file charges unless it's clear as day, because they often don't want to go against law enforcement. And I think we need to continue putting light on instances of police brutality, but I think we also have to be fair in our analysis so that we can make sure we're really analyzing the issue correctly. And the reality is, if there were shots fired from that tent, it makes it a much more difficult, analysis or defense of this gentleman who lost his life. And of course, that is a tragic circumstance. I don't mean to undermine that. But if there were shots that came from that tent, then, we have to honestly mention that the officers are, one, entitled to use deadly force if they're being faced with it credibly. And 2, if those shots came in very quick succession, then it may have been reasonable under these circumstances. Now, with all that being said, we very often discuss on this show instances where the police narrative is one thing, and then we learn after the fact it's something completely different that happened. And I think that, in fact, that's what the family's autopsy that they privately got here said, is that he had wounds that indicated, they were defensive wounds. His hands were up, rather. His hands were up. He may not have had a weapon in his hands, and he was sitting cross-legged as he was sitting down. That's crucially important because in those circumstances, it wouldn't be objectively reasonable. However, not having all of the evidence, I don't know that I have enough to truly analyze this the way it needs to be analyzed.
Here's what's interesting here when I look at this story here, Kelly, that, again, I don't understand why we're even at this point where these things are not the case. So the story says troopers as state law enforcement agents do not wear body cams. Go to my iPad. It says Christian's report reveals, however, that the APD body cams were not the only ones on the scene. Georgia Department of Natural Resources game wardens were also in the area with body cams. Body cameras should be absolutely mandatory. Mandatory for all law enforcement. If you're packing a gun, you should have a body cam on.
Not only that, but regarding exactly where this took place, being Cop City down in Georgia, considering how highly contested and protested that site is, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth more than usual that these cops did not have on body cams, because that just seems a little sus to me. That seems like you were trying to evade any type of liability or accountability in this situation because of exactly what the culture is in this particular site, being that, you know, the Georgia government is trying to build a training facility for cops there, and you have protesters there who are against it. And the fact that somebody was killed on that site protesting this, and you have the very same cops who are frankly in need of this site shooting at this person without something that could possibly, what's the word? Get them out of trouble, so to speak. It just all seems very sus to me. But you're absolutely right. Body cams should absolutely be mandatory. Unfortunately, that kind of policy is on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction basis. Congress, get on your job and make that a federal mandate across the country, and we can get something done. But as for this situation, everything about this is really suspect to me.
Michael.
Yeah, Roland, this is an evolving situation. It's very disturbing. 57 shots shot into a tent, even if, he did shoot 4 shots from the tent. It's at some point you have to, as a police officer, when you're shooting at someone, especially shooting into a structure or a tent or something like that, you have to cease fire and assess the situation. So we're trying to get more details here. And then the fact that there's no body camera footage or it appears no dash cam footage either, according to the article from USA Today. Then we basically only get, it appears, one side of the story, but the autopsy tends to conflict what the police are saying happened. So we need more information on that. Looks like there's going to be a civil lawsuit as well. But this is why, we need officers who exhibit better judgment, generally speaking.
Folks, a New Mexico police officer has been charged with voluntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting of a black man during a confrontation at a gas station. Las Cruces police officer Brad Lunsford was booked and released Tuesday morning. Lunsford allegedly shot Presley Azay on August 2nd, 2022 at a gas station after an employee called 911 accusing Azay of leaving with beer he did not pay for. According to reports, Lunsford was the first officer to arrive. There was a scuffle when another officer arrived. Somehow, Azay ended up on the ground on top of the second officer, allegedly placing his hand on that officer's taser. Lunsford drew his handgun and shot Azay once on the back left side of his head at point-blank range. The Attorney General's office consulted with use of force experts who reviewed body camera footage and determined that the officer's use of deadly force was not reasonable under the circumstances. Folks, this story is unbelievably crazy. A Las Vegas, Nevada woman says all she got was a sorry after a CVS pharmacy gave her the wrong drugs that killed her unborn twins. Tamika Thomas, a mother of 4, who wanted to expand her family, had trouble getting pregnant. She had 2 ectopic pregnancies, leading to Thomas to removing her fallopian tubes. So she and her husband decided to try in vitro fertilization. After her procedure, she was given prescriptions to trick her body into producing enough hormones to kickstart her pregnancy. Instead of getting the prescribed drug, the pharmacy mistakenly gave her an abortion drug. How in the hell did that happen? A pharmacy technician put in the wrong generic name of the drug Thomas was prescribed. One pharmacist did not catch the error, and another failed to counsel Thomas when she came to pick up her medication. She filed a complaint with the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy, which met last month. The 2 pharmacists were fired and had their licenses suspended provisionally. If both pharmacists avoid disciplinary action over the next 12 months, pay fines, and take continuing education credits, their licenses will be reinstated. The Pharmacy Board fined CVS the maximum amount allowed by the statute, $10,000. CVS put this statement out. We've apologized to our patient for the prescription incident that occurred in 2019 and have cooperated with the Nevada Board of Pharmacy in this matter. The health and well-being of our patients is our #1 priority, and we have comprehensive policies and procedures in place to support prescription safety. Prescription errors are very rare, but if one does occur, we take steps to learn from it in order to continuously improve quality and patient safety. She lost twins, Kelly.
The way that I would own CVS after this, it would be called Kelly Bethia Pharmacy. Like, I cannot imagine how blatant of an error that is. Like, how does that even happen? The protocols necessary to fill a prescription and make sure that, you know, the right pills in the right bottle and the name matches to the script and all of these things. And the one drug that you give her is the antithesis of what the drug is prescribed. Like that, I have no words. All I have is empathy and heart. My heart just goes out to this woman, regardless of how many children she already has. Clearly she wanted more. Clearly she was able to get, you know, conceive more. And the cost of IVF, the process to go through IVF, all of it, like, it is beyond traumatic outside of this gross negligent error, to the point where that this happens on top of it. I can't imagine what she's going through. I can't imagine what her family's going through. My heart goes out to her, and $10,000 doesn't seem nearly enough. That is an insult to the injury that this woman has incurred.
My bad not gonna do it.
Oh, no, my bad's not going to do it. The one thing about this that's good, if you can even look at that, is that this is a private company and a corporation that's publicly traded that has money for days, and they are going to pay this family money for days, which will not bring back the loss. I mean, money is never equivalent to the loss of a life. But because it is a private company, I think that makes it a much easier path forward in a lawsuit. And if I may, Roland, I wanted to speak on that New Mexico shooting as well. I graduated high school in Austin, Texas, where I'm from, and a guy I went to high school with died in almost exactly the same circumstances, where an Austin police officer said she thought he was reaching for her taser, and she pulled her gun instead and shot him at point-blank range in the back, and he died like a year after we graduated high school. It's sad how often this kind of thing happens, and I'm glad that he was charged, because I think that's going to be indefensible to that New Mexico jury. Really, a man died over allegedly stolen beer. So I'm glad that at least in that circumstances, the prosecutors found a way to charge. But as to this family, CVS is going to pay through the nose, and they should, because this is abhorrent. There's literally no way to defend this mistake. And even if you say, oh, it's a mistake, this is the kind of thing where you have to have the checks and protocols in place to not allow, exactly as Kelly said, the exact opposite drug of what should have been administered to be provided and to end that family's dreams and those lives. So I hope that CVS pays them through the nose.
Michael.
Yeah, Roland, I saw this story earlier today, and it's a tragic incident. It did not have to happen like this, so my heart goes out to Sister Tamika Thomas and her family. I know she's going to need counseling. Little known fact about me, I know what it's like to lose a baby because it happened to me and my then fiance back in 2014. Baby born prematurely, but even though it's different circumstances, it's still a baby dying. So, yeah, she's going to need her family around her. She's going to need counseling, and CVS is going to have to get some people together to help them put out a better statement, so it looks like they have a heart. Also, this is a ridiculous statement from CVS as well.
Indeed. All right. Michael, Matt, Kelly, we appreciate y'all joining us on today's show. Thank you so very much. We'll see y'all next week. Folks, got to go to break. We come back. I'm going to tell you where we're going to be broadcasting from on Monday and Tuesday as we focus on upcoming elections in the state of Virginia. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to support us in what we do. I can't tell you enough how critical your dollars are for us being able to do this work. It is not free. It is not free at all. So send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal are Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Don't forget, also download the Black Star Network app, available on Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, watch our 24-hour streaming channel. We're available, folks, on Amazon News. You can check us by going to Amazon Fire. You can also tell Alexa play news from the Black Star Network. Also, check us out, folks, on Plex TV. And we have now launched on Amazon Freevee as well as Amazon Prime Video. So if you go to Prime Video, turn on their live TV, you will see us right there with the other news networks. We'll be right back.
All change is not growth.
Right.
But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder.
Right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
All right, folks, on Monday, we're going to be broadcasting live from Virginia Beach. That's right, folks. We're going to be down there with a number of candidates who are running for the Virginia House. We're going to be, of course, at New Hope Baptist Church, 395 Old Great Neck Road in Virginia Beach. Looking forward to seeing y'all down there. The next day, we're going to be in Suffolk, Virginia. Suffolk, Virginia on the next day. Can't wait to be there. Y'all got that slide? Let's go to it. All right, got it. All right, so Suffolk is the next day, folks. So looking forward to being at Suffolk. We're going to be there at the Baum Church, East Campus, 523 East Washington Street, Suffolk, Virginia. And so, again, we'll be live 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, so can't wait to see y'all down there. So please check us out. Louisiana, folks, do not forget, tomorrow, last day of early voting in Louisiana. We need to make sure every African American, there are 900,000 registered black folks in Louisiana. We need to be voting our numbers. And so please be sure to cast your ballot. All right, folks, I've got to, so again, pull it up right there. It ends first of all, early voting was from 8:30 a.m. CST to 6 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time. So please, we want to make sure that you are doing your part to vote. We can't be out here talking about how things matter, and then we don't use our power. And so Election Day, again, is October 14th. Voting that day is 7 a.m. To 8 p.m. Again, 7 a.m. To 8 p.m. And so please, we want you to participate. All right, folks, tomorrow I'm going to be in Los Angeles tomorrow. BlackHealthMatters.com. Go to my iPad, please. It's hosting their Fall 2023 Health Summit and Expo. It's going to be co-hosted by James Pickens Jr., Wendy Raquel Robinson, and they've been the co-host. And you see some of the people who are going to be speaking there. Courtney B. Vance, Dr. Robin Smith, among the speakers who are going to be there. So I'm looking forward to be there. And so again, we're going to be there. I'm going to be there around 9 a.m. LA time. And so looking forward to being there. I'm moderating a couple of sessions. And so these are the community partners. And so again, I'll see you tomorrow in Los Angeles. All right, folks, that's it for me. I'll see you Monday from Virginia Beach, Virginia, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Bye.